All right, everybody. Chris here from Chris and G Travels. Today we have two very special guests. We have Jim and Debbie. So when I was building or raising the roof of the bus, this is where I was at, Jim and Debbie, and they're actually in their bus right now. So go ahead and introduce yourself, guys, and let us know
Hey,
what's
Debbie,
going on.
this is Jim.
Not true. I'm Debbie.
I'm Jim, and we have um, what is it? Life is a Joy is our channel. Used to be my name, Jim Gadberry, but now it's Life is a Joy.
Yep.
And you're in your bus right now. So tell everybody
We are.
what's happening with your bus, because essentially right now you're on a break-in trip with the school bus that you two built.
Yeah. It's not totally finished. There are a few little cabinets and things that we need to finish up, but we're taking our first trip over to Branson, Missouri to meet my two sisters and their husbands and just have a little weekend of R&R because it can get kind of tiresome working on the bus for a year, like we have been doing. Yeah.
And I'm the best looking guy of the three couples. Just wanted to point that
Oh, well,
out.
the couples that are going. Oh, definitely. He has the most hair.
I have the
That's for
most
sure.
hair.
How's the bus holding up on your break-in trip? I mean, has there been any surprises? Has it been pretty smooth?
Oh, it's been great. Actually, a few little rattles and things that Debbie stuffed pillows behind as we were traveling, like my TV that I mounted on the wall. She had to stuff something behind there because something was rattling. But hey, you know what? I'm very pleased with the way it runs.
We had some problems with the weather this morning.
Yes. When we
Snowy and icy. Yeah.
last night, Debbie wanted to sleep a little bit before we left, so I got up at 5 this morning and we headed out. But as soon as we got on the road, it started snowing pretty good, and there was probably about an inch, maybe 2 inches of snow. All the snow plows were out, but people were kind of driving crazy a little bit. We saw a few in the ditch, so made me be real careful. You know, if you got a bus that weighs what? I don't know what they weigh, close to 30,000 pounds. You want to make sure you give yourself a lot of room to stop.
Absolutely.
So we pulled over in Colorado Springs and stopped for a while and waited till it got daylight and the roads were a little clearer.
So is the
But we're
bus
having a good time, and we just started, so
awesome?
we're really looking forward to a great weekend, great week.
Mhm.
Absolutely. No, I was going to ask, how is the bus holding up in the snow? Is the weight helping out? Because as you mentioned, or as you mentioned to me earlier when we were building my bus, you got new tires. I have new tires. It's a typical thing when you buy a Skoolie, you have to go out and buy new tires because the school districts will replace all your tires with the worst tires they have because they're expensive. They're super expensive tires. Has the bus held up pretty well in the snow?
Oh, absolutely. Not a slip, just absolutely operated perfect.
Awesome.
I'm very pleased, you know, considering we saw so many people in ditches, and we never even had a slip of any kind. It just really did well.
Awesome. So can you kind of tell the story, because I don't know the story of this, the story of you agreeing to help me with my Skoolie, because all it was at first I saw your build on YouTube and I sent you a comment through YouTube. You replied to that, and I sent you my email, and then we've been emailing back and forth. So what was the process, the thought process of you actually agreeing to help with my school bus?
Well, we believe that it's real important to help anywhere we can. And so even though it slowed us down for a few weeks,
Just a couple. Just a couple.
we were
We needed a break.
Yeah, we needed a break from our bus, and it was very exciting to help you. What a joy. I'm so glad that we met you, Chris, because you're just a wonderful man.
Well, thank you. You guys are awesome too. Like I mentioned in the video before I left, like your hospitality and how just happy you guys are. It's a big motivator, and it comes through in your videos, but it comes through even more so in real life. You know what I mean? Like it might be hard for some people to believe that, but it's totally true. And Like we were talking, and you mentioned that you didn't have a name for your bus. I was like, oh, it should totally be called Joy. Like, have you named
Yeah,
your bus now that it's on its first trip?
Yeah, we
it
already
is
got
Joy.
we
Yep.
got the name painted on it
Oh,
already.
cool, awesome.
And the name paint, it says Joy on the front.
That's
So
fantastic.
yeah.
So right now you both have just recently retired. So now you're essentially building this bus and you're going to get it locked in, ready to go. Then you're selling your house, correct? And then hitting the road full time.
Yes, we are.
Can you
And
No,
go
sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say can you unpack that a little bit and let us know the original idea and where that came from and like just hitting the road, selling your house, like what was the first steps for that?
Well, we had a lot of things going at our house. I had goats, uh, I think 6 of them.
Aquaponics.
We had aquaponics, 2,500 fish,
We're
and
growing
fodder for the goats and for the chickens, about 100 chickens. So all
and
those
we
things,
raised dogs.
and we raised dogs. We actually had about 40 at that time because we had puppies and our breeding adults. And we had been raising dogs for like 15 years and really, really loved it and enjoyed it. So that was one of the hardest things for me um, to give up. But the way we got started is I came home one day and I just felt like we needed to downsize. I don't know exactly why. Debbie came home and said to me, go ahead.
I called you on the way home from work. I was on my way home from
Mhm.
work, and I said, I'm just kind of thinking that I have this feeling that maybe we should just downsize. We're so tied down with all the animals and everything that we were doing, and we didn't get to see our family in Oklahoma very much. And we just would like to do a little bit of traveling and maybe eventually buy a piece of property somewhere where we can park a lot of the time. But we just both felt that way the same day. It was just really weird. And so there were some big adjustments.
So we found a bus on
Yep.
Craigslist
Yep.
and I flew up to Gillette, Wyoming, and paid cash for the bus and drove it home.
So
And
can
a
you
year ago,
it was a year ago that happened?
yes.
A
So
little over a year.
what was the process of deciding on a school bus, first of all? And I'm going to add on to that question. How did you find that bus if it was all the way in Wyoming? Like how did that bus come about? And why did you pick that bus?
We started searching on Craigslist. We wanted a bus that had storage. So this was an activity bus and it had storage bays underneath. Also, I figured probably a little less wear because all the all the miles are on the road. Being an activity bus, it's not a stop and go process. So uh, we
And
looked
buy a
on
school bus. Yeah.
Yeah, we looked on Craigslist. The reason we chose a school bus is we've seen how motorhomes, except for maybe the Prevost or the really great ones, sometimes they're not built as safe as what we would like. A
Yeah.
school bus is built for safety. That's what it's built for. It's like a tank. And so far we checked ours has gotten about 10 miles to gallon, but that's not any different than what most motorhomes get. So in fact, I heard somebody saying that theirs got 7 the other day.
Mine gets
But 7.
Mhm.
Ours gets about 10.
Well, it did. We haven't checked it this
Oh, we
time.
haven't checked it since we put everything in it. But
Yeah.
our bus is really not
Still
that
bring it
much.
down.
It's not any heavier than it was when you consider it had 80 people in it. Here we got 2 people in it, and you look at all the stuff we've added. I would say that our bus is not as heavy as it was when it was hauling kids. That's for sure.
And it
Right.
had also all the seats in it, which we took out.
Those things are
before
heavy.
we added, which are super heavy. And all the air conditioning that was in this one was a big, heavy thing.
And we got rid of
And
all
we took that all
and
out
we
and
put in a mini split
put the mini split
instead,
in. So,
which
yeah.
works wonderfully, by the way.
So if you're down in Colorado, when you did a Craigslist search, did it just happen to show up how like with Craigslist it shows your local listings, and then also listings a little bit further away. So it was just a little bit further down.
Yeah, it was just further to the bottom. And
Okay.
Wyoming, Gillette, Wyoming is not that far from us. It take me
I don't remember how
7
far it
hours
was.
to get home, I think. So about
Oh, wow.
7 hour drive.
That's not bad at all. So when I left, you didn't have the seating situation figured out for Debbie. Now that you're on your trip, where are you sitting at, Debbie, as you travel?
Yeah, we actually bought some van seats from a storage unit, and we're going to put one of those up there right behind the stairs. But we just never could figure out how that was going to work very well. So I'm sitting on the couch, and actually it's very comfortable.
And we are going to put one where you said you were going to put yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right there. But well,
Yeah.
that's where we're going to mount it, right there.
But we haven't
Okay.
got it in there yet. So right now I'm on the couch.
Yeah, I mean, after looking at the floor up there and seeing it, I'm still trying to get that figured out. So hopefully you can be the frontier wanderers and get that figured out, and then I can copy whatever you do.
Well, I'll tell you, Debbie can attest to this. Last night I sat for 4 hours and stared at the chair, turned it over, looked at it, tried to figure the safest and best way to put it in, and finally I just said, "Hey, I don't have time to this time. I want to do it right. So I'm gonna do it when I get back home."
Yeah, it's not always easy.
Where I am, I feel totally safe. So it's okay. I know we're gonna get it worked out eventually, but it's not easy. And there were several different kinds of the seats that we got.
Mhm.
We got like 8 different seats.
Yeah, we got 8
and
seats.
they were from 2 different vehicles. So he looked at all the different configurations on the bottom, and they were just all so confusing.
Were all those removable seats. So, very, very difficult to figure it out. So I may have to go get one that's actually like a front passenger seat where it's got the rails under it, because the ones that I got have all these hooks and levers, and it's hard to figure out
wheels even on them.
Even wheels.
That's not going to do you any good in a bus.
No, probably not.
So those that are, I feel like this is something that's been going on for a while, converting the school buses and everything, but I feel like it's definitely gaining traction. So a lot of people are looking at their RVs like I did and just being like, this thing, it's dropping in value like an anvil. It's not built that well. It's not that safe. I don't get that good gas mileage, and I have a gas engine. So, it does make sense for a lot of people to buy these school buses and then convert them. And the one thing that I'll touch on that people need to be aware of is, even though you can buy these things for $3,000, like I bought mine for $3,000, had almost 140,000, mid 130,000 miles on it, and to even get it test driven to see if the engine was good and the transmission was good, I had to buy new tires for it, which cost $3,100, right? So these projects they're cheap to get into, but once you get into it, you have a commercial grade vehicle, and everything costs a lot more to get anything done. So is there any insights, any things that you learned in this process that you think somebody wanting to get into this lifestyle, wanting to build their own school bus, what should they know before they get started?
Well, it's going to take longer than you think. It's going to be more work than you think it is.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And it's going to cost more money than you think it will.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it was a joy building the bus. I did everything by myself except put a few pieces of metal on. You know how windy it can be where we lived. So after I tried to put the first one up by myself, the next day I recruited my son-in-law, James Millsaps, and he helped me put the rest of the metal on the outside. All I needed is for someone to help me lift it up to stabilize it, because that wind would just really kick it around.
Yeah, I can't believe that you put those metal sheets up yourself. Those things were 120 pounds and incredibly wobbly. Like, I feel like it was hard enough for both of us to put that up.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, and it can really be overwhelming at times, thinking that this is never going to get finished. And is it going to be worth it? And am I sure this is what I wanted to do? And all those thoughts, but you just have to plod on, plod on.
That's right. My favorite poem. Have you heard it?
no, what is it?
It's called Plod On. That's the name of the poem. And it goes like this. Plod on. Plod on, plod on, plod on. Plod on. Plod on. That's it.
You have to tell yourself that multiple times by building the bus.
Multiple.
Yeah. Well, we wanted a bus. We wanted the bus to look homey inside. We wanted it to be more like a house.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see that many when we're looking at motorhomes and things. We don't see that many that look like a house. They look more like a motorhome. So we tried to go the other direction in making our cabinets more like homey cabinets. Just everything in the house, we tried to make it look like home.
No, absolutely.
And we planned on living in this, indefinitely. So we're excited about it. Of course, this is our first day of actually living in the bus, but we have been sleeping in it, and for how long?
A couple months. A few months, yeah.
Yeah, 2 or 3 months, and really enjoying it, and very pleased with all of our choices that we made. Just the only thing is, really, I should have given myself a little more time
to finish it.
Well, yes. In the beginning, I set goals. I've always set goals. So I set goals, and I said, I'm going to be completely finished with this within 1 year. Well, I wasn't.
Before then, though, he set goals like, okay, we're going to be finished by May. We're going to be moved in by May. We can have our house sold, and that was quite a while back. So
May's a while back.
September.
Yeah, and I kept saying, just don't set any goals. We don't have any deadlines. Just do it. Just keep working on it, and eventually we'll get there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the one thing that I've noticed, I mean, granted, I've only been in this for, a little over a month now, is the daily goals is where it's at for me. I don't have like a set goal, but when I wake up in the morning, excuse me, work my mobile income job, have some coffee, and sit down and write out my list for the day, I'm not thinking about next week, where I want to be next week. I'm thinking about when I'm laying in bed, am I going to be satisfied with this amount of work done? And that's how I'm doing it now. Like, I made a goal to get the floor all welded in and everything and paint early this morning, but it didn't happen. So you just got to, do the best you can. And then the next day you wake up and do the best you can.
Yep. Yep. But that, I think that's so smart and so wise of you to do that. Just daily goals.
But I'm smart too.
You are.
Yeah, and going back to what we touched on earlier, like it's plot on, like you said. There is a lot of times, like throughout the whole roof build, it's always like first we clean everything out, then that's a milestone. Then we cut the bus in half, and that's a milestone. Then we get all the supports in, and that's a milestone. Then we get all the sheet metal on. But I feel like you do have big moments that come up. Like, for example, right now you're actually living in your bus. But I didn't get the feeling that I have now about the bus until I stopped at a rest area on the way home on Colorado, excuse me, and I saw the bus sitting there at a rest stop with the mountains in the background, and knowing that I could start that bus up and go anywhere where I wanted to go. You know what I mean? Like,
that's awesome.
And you have small milestones, then you have a precipice, but you're not finished by any means. But you're making those big milestones. So did you have any big milestones yourself before where you're at now? Like, is there anything that I'm going to be looking forward to? Is it like when I get the insulation in and then all the...
Oh, that's a big one. Yes.
Yeah. Do you have any foresight on that?
Because we put all the Jim put all the wiring and everything in, of course, before he blew the insulation. Because then
all the plumbing, all the wiring,
and all the wiring. So then, when you put the insulation, blow the insulation in, well, it even helps it hold it in place. So having that insulation in just felt like a huge milestone. I felt like.
And it is a messy job to blow insulation. Make sure if there's anything that you don't want to have insulation permanently stuck to it, then make sure it's covered, because I'm telling you, that stuff sticks to everything.
So before I put any flooring down, I need to make sure that insulation is set.
Then another thing that was there are some things that happened, like when the levelers got on, because we bought those Bigfoot levelers so we could level the bus.
Which is, by the way,
they were
one of the most
expensive.
exciting things. You push one button and it levels itself up. Isn't that awesome?
It's wonderful. They were expensive, though, and they were a lot of work for Jim to figure out and to weld them on. We took them to a welder, and he did part of them, and
I tacked them all.
It was just a lot of work.
I just tacked them all on, but I wanted to take them to a professional and have a professional weld them on, so I didn't ever have to think about the fact of, are they going to pop off or something? So
right.
So that was one. When we got our water working, we got water running and everything and all that stuff.
That's
working.
kind of a milestone.
Yeah, and when we got the propane working, those are all recent things that I can think. They were just like, oh yes, now we can cook in here because we have propane. So.
And by the way, we made our own composting toilet, and it is wonderful.
Yeah, that works well.
We think it is absolutely fabulous.
I might have to steal that design from you, depending on our budget.
Well, it actually was very inexpensive. I know that like Nature's Head is like $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
I think we probably spent about a little over 100, probably.
Maybe, I don't know, because we used a part out of an old refrigerator that we had out of the ice maker, the deal that turns. Has a little motor.
Use that motor, but we used we did buy from the UK. We bought a urine diverter.
Oh, that's right. We spent $100.
That was $86, I think. Yeah.
And then we have a little computer fan down in there in the box down there where it says. And it runs 24/7. It's totally quiet and just keeps the odor out.
Yeah, and I did put a computer fan that I had here at the house, and it was so noisy you could hear it all the time. So I went online and I just found one that said silent, and it had the same cubic feet per minute, and but it was silent. And I'm telling you, you cannot hear it. Even when I get in there and open the deal up, I still can't hear that fan. It's so quiet.
Huh. Yeah, whenever you all make it down to Arizona, we're gonna have to do a tour video of your rig. So I'd love to get a more insight on how that composting toilet works, because budget-wise, that's 10 to 1. You can't really argue with that. And you also went pretty big on your solar as well, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's 2,600 and something. What is it? It's
24, 2,600.
It's 8 panels.
Yeah.
330 watts each.
Yeah, wow. So it's 2640.
2640. And then we also have 12 130 amp hour AGM batteries.
What made you go with such a big solar system? Was it just you wanted to be able to be off the grid indefinitely for 3 weeks to a month without starting your engine, just set up and ready to go?
Well, actually, yeah, we wanted to be where we could be independent, because we plan on boondocking mostly. And so we wanted more energy. And in Colorado, we have sunshine most of the time, but we are not always going to be in Colorado. And we wanted to be able to go, several days. And we're operating our heating and air conditioning. Off of that, we're operating all of our lights, which, by the way, are LEDs that we ordered on Amazon, and they are absolutely wonderful. You've seen them, Chris.
Mm-hmm. Super
And
bright.
a lot of light.
A lot of light.
We have a microwave, which we almost never use. We use it for popcorn. It's about all we use it for. Debbie likes popcorn.
Yeah, I do. Unfortunately, it's one of my
we have
bad.
a full-size refrigerator, full-size stove, and I opted, instead of going with a big propane tank, I looked, and man, they're expensive for a big propane tank. So I opted to go with the small 5 gallons that are replaceable. You can pull up to Home Depot or Walmart and just switch them out. It's a little cheaper if you go have them filled, but I actually have 6 tanks. So that's quite a bit of propane. And I got the switch so we don't ever run out of propane. When it starts getting low in one bottle, I can just switch it over to the other bottle. And then the other 4 are just separate, just for replacements. And so we can boondock for quite a while if we don't have any facilities.
What's your water capacity in that bus?
100 gallons fresh water, 100-gallon gray tank, and then we have a 45-gallon gray tank we use for shower and bath.
Okay. And you mentioned while we're at the house, and you actually got me thinking about it. You're using a radiant heat system for your flooring, right? And when I first talked to you about it, I was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do that. But now that I'm looking at diesel heater options that have multiple coils in them, if I just have like a dedicated line that also runs through the flooring, then have radiant floor heating in the bus anytime that diesel heater's on. Can you kind of touch base on the radiant floor, how you set it up and why you went for it?
Yeah, we put radiant floor in a lot of the houses I built, and it's one of the least expensive ways to heat your house. And plus, when you put your feet on the floor in the morning, it's nice and warm. It's not cold. And you can, if you use what's called an open system, you run cold water through it during the summer. So it actually will serve as a little bit of cooling on the floor also. You can't count on that, but it does. It does help a little bit. But the radiant floor is some work, but it's not really that expensive to do the radiant floor. PEX is not really expensive, all the reflectors you need. And once you have it in, you've got a system that's going to work indefinitely and very inexpensively. Now, we also have a Takagi brand instant hot water heater. It's way bigger than what I needed, but it's actually made to handle a house with 5 bedrooms.
Wow!
So it's a big unit, but it's the only one that will work at altitude that Takagi makes. So it works. You have little toggle switches that you change. Like at 10,000, it'll work up to 10,000 feet, no problem. But you have to change the toggle switches at different altitudes. And the cool thing about it is this thing heats the water beautifully, and it uses thin wall PVC for the venting. It is so efficient.
Wow. So with the way you have your radiant floor set up, the instant hot water heater is actually what heats your floor. So it also provides heat for the motorhome itself, because you have that mini split, but that's not necessarily a heater, that's a heat pump, correct?
That's correct. And heat pumps don't work when it's really cold. They don't work very well.
So instead of doing the traditional furnace, you're essentially just using an instant hot water heater as your main heat source.
That's correct.
And being that it's snowing there, is it working? Is it doing pretty well?
Oh, it's working wonderfully.
How long did it take to warm up? Like, did you leave it on overnight? Or have you ever got to the situation where it's really cold outside and then you fire that thing up and it has to warm everything up?
We just leave it on all the time. You just set the thermostat, and because it's an instant hot water heater, when the pump kicks on, which the thermostat operates the pump, when the pump kicks on and moves the water, then the hot water heater kicks on. It kicks on from the movement of the water. And then it will continue to circulate, which the pump for the it pulls almost no juice. The little pump for it's a little taco pump, and it moves the water through all the radiant floor, and so it's all operated on a thermostat. So you don't have to think about it. It just keeps it warm.
That's amazing. And you use PEX to do that? So the hot water goes through PEX and then goes to different reservoirs that are up against the floor that warm it? Like, I guess I didn't see how that was actually installed. So how does that work?
Well, I do have a video that shows the installation on my channel, but really you use a little. What I did is I put down 1x3s, flatways every 16 inches on the floor. And then in between that, I put in the foam insulation, 1.5-inch foam insulation with the foil on the top. Then I took a router and I did all my grooves just using a jig, using a 2x4, and just routed everything so that the PEX can lay right in it. But then on all the cross members, I used reflectors. They're aluminum reflectors that are made to fit the PEX. And they lay right under the PEX. The PEX goes right down inside. And then that aluminum heats up, and it helps reflect all the energy up. So most all the energy just comes right up to the floor. Now I have a 3/4 subfloor, and then I put a wood floor on top of that. So it's the wood floor is just a pre-finished type floor. They did tell me that the pre-finished floor was water resistant. I'm telling you, it's not at all. So if you buy a floor, either seal it. Don't believe them at Home Depot or Lowe's or anywhere else, because these guys that tell you this, they haven't been in the business of putting down floors. And it's important. Moisture is the enemy of wood. So we have to make sure that it's sealed. We assumed that it was sealed well. We laid a wet towel actually on the floor when we were working. We were doing some troubleshooting and we got some water on the floor. Just left the wet towel there for maybe 15 minutes?
Probably, yeah.
When we picked up the towel, all the wood was horrible. All the wood had lifted up, all the grain had lifted up. And so I had to do a whole lot of sanding, and then we put 3 coats of a good sealer, polyurethane, on the floor. And now we don't worry about it.
Yeah, I actually just saw a picture of somebody that used tongue and groove and just sanded that and made it nice and looking good. Put a stain on that, then 3 coats of poly, and it actually looked like a good floor.
Yep.
Yeah, and
sounds good.
I think it's a great floor.
That's something to think about on my end, I guess.
And save you some money too.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, we're in the process of doing that. I've been checking Craigslist every day, finding used material, distressed wood. Every morning, I'm looking on there for different gear.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can find there, and we bought a lot of our stuff at Habitat. We bought like our kitchen sink, I think, for $10 or $15, and there were some things that we wanted brand new. Our faucets and stuff, we didn't want to buy used faucets. We wanted to buy new ones, and that's not a big expense anyway. But the sinks for your kitchen are a good one is going to be $200 or so. So
absolutely.
Yeah, we bought it for, I think it was $15.
I think it was.
Yeah.
And another place where people can look, might be shooting myself in the foot here, but down in Arizona, I've been going on publicsurplus.com, and that's a government auction website. Lots of tools. We got a sink. It's actually made for a bathroom, but we got a nice large porcelain sink that on Amazon was like $550. We got it for $45.
That's right.
There's just so many options out there. You just gotta be diligent and look every single day, and hope the auction goes your way. But I think it's a good spot to wrap up for now, because I'd love to do a future video with you guys on once you get that thing fully set in and you get this break-in trip figured out. But if somebody did want to watch your build videos, where would they be able to look? Because everything that you mentioned right now, I'll link in the description of this video, so people will be one click away from being able to check out what you talk about.
Life is a joy, Chris. Life is a joy, and that's where they'll find us on YouTube.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thanks again for helping with Irma. She's coming along, and
Hey,
I can't wait to see
thanks
her.
for being our friend. We just love you faces. We're very anxious to get down to Arizona and see you guys.
Yeah.
We feel that it's a real blessing to meet you.
We're gonna have to do an escape room whenever you're here, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes, let's do that.
Alrighty, guys.
Thank you so much. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Chris.